and you should be good. So, the way we'll do this is, like I said, I'm Amber, but we're going to go through all of this. And then at the very end, we'll do questions. That way, we make sure we get through everything. I'm not entirely sure on what my timing is going to be because I did a whole bunch of updates and things. But I'm absolutely a digital forensic advocate. I think it's a wonderful field. And for those of you who happen to be neurodivergent like myself, I think it is a fantastic field for you. I wish people would have known about it when I was struggling through all of my years of dyslexia, which I still, of course, struggle through, because it is the perfect area to think through problems backwards. And that's really what brought me into the whole side of digital gaming and doing evidence in this particular area, is because I was inspired by my sons. Both of them are digital gamers, and one of them actually is an esports player at a different university. And I learned a lot from kind of looking at what their process was. And the big part of it was where they spent all their time. And I realized they were spending so much of their time in digital gaming that that really was their ecosystem, and it deserved an investigative perspective going into it because there are problems happening there just like any other online space. So, keeping that in mind, I'm sure you guys wondered, you're like, okay, she's talking about digital gaming. Is she a gamer herself? So, this emoji explains it all. So, as games have gotten so much better in their graphics, those of us who suffer from motion sickness do not play a whole lot of them because we get very, very sick with them. Through all the research I did in looking at the digital gaming community, I did end up playing quite a few of them. I was not as good as I wanted to be, which is kind of sad, but I did improve every time I went in for a new session. My maximum length of a session, though, is about 15 minutes before the motion sickness just becomes too much and I have to step away. However, I was fantastic at Duke Nukem and I was awesome at Quake when we actually used LAN parties, and that's how we used to do digital gaming. Nothing like where it was now. And I do still have my original Atari. It just hates smart TVs, which is a problem because you have to get all these adapters to make it work with it. But I do have all those things. I think the world of gaming is actually where people will get their first touch into what I consider modern cyberspace, which includes all of those communities in it. So, with that in mind, obviously, I have a love of Pac Man as well. Who doesn't love Pac Man? So, there are 224.8 million total US video game players. That is a lot of people. And when you look at some of those demographics of it, where you've got 53% of them being male, 46% being female, 70% of the kids are under the age of 18 playing in that space. And then look at the age range to it. We have everyone from 26 into people that are 50 plus playing in this space. It's probably the most friendly space out there where you're getting such a large age range. Now, the problem with that is because you have such a huge age range occurring, you have a high probability of having problems. You've got different interactions based on different generations, and then you also have a lot of people that are under the age of 18 that are at risk. So, we're going to cover a variety of those areas and where we potentially have incidents happening within this particular area of cyberspace associated with the gaming. So, my goal at the end is that you guys get kind of a summary of some of the digital gaming environments as I went through and do my research. And I update my research often. It's the first of the year, so you guys are getting my new research updated in this. I'm going to show some of the investigative artifacts that we look at when we actually start doing an investigation in this space. So, as a digital forensic professional, this is what I would be looking for if I were investigating it. And then looking at some of the unique social media that occurs associated with gaming in particular, that maybe a lot of other areas we don't look at it. We look at more traditional social media from the aspects of like, oh, Instagram, they're showing a bunch of pictures, they're getting private messages, they might be dating using their Instagram profile. But there's an entirely different ecosystem that exists that is associated directly with the gamers. So, our first question we always ask, of course, is why do people choose to play? This occupies a lot of time. When I looked at my sons, I looked at how much time they spent on this, and they spend between 8 to 14 hours a day in some type of gaming environment, interacting with an entirely different community than they do in real life. And part of the reason they play is that is their community. It is their escape and their release of or stress and all their other problems, they do it by playing the particular types of games that they like to play. Now, my sons play two different styles of games, so I got a unique perspective in that, where one is actually trying to become a professional in video games, where the other one was doing it simply for a stress release. But if you look at the statistics here, you can see how often it is for that relaxation, de-stressor versus entertainment versus escape from real life, very popular. But the last one, the smallest percentage, if you look in that gray area there, is because they're good at them. That's very rarely the reason that people are going into play. It's not because, oh, hey, I want to be so competitive, I'm just going to be able to beat you all. It's really there for other social reasons that they go and spend the amount of time and the financial resources into the digital gaming community. So, how are they going through and doing this? They're doing it on a variety of different devices. And this is where we kind of take our digital forensic perspective on it and we apply it into our digital gaming environments. That's where we're looking at different tablets to smartphones to consoles to computers. Each one of them has different artifacts that we would use to be able to investigate these particular environments. And I'm going to break each one of those down. When we look at our 2025 stats, which is great because we're at the first of a year right now, we can see where most people are doing their gaming. And I think you might be a little bit surprised that the highest gaming environment is actually on your mobile devices. So smartphones are still taking the take as far as most people are joining different gaming communities or playing games on their mobile devices, where a lot of people assume that it's got to be console or PC based. It's not, it's definitely within the mobile world. That will include our tablet community as well. This should make sense to you when you think back to the original stat of who is playing, because we have such a high percentage of kids under the age of 18 playing. Their access is being done through those mobile devices. And so that's one of the primary pieces of evidence that we're going to look at. So we're going to go smartphones and tablets, computers and cloud. And yes, smartphones can go cloud as well, but I'm kind of breaking it into those areas. Then we're going to talk gaming consoles, and then we're going to end it out with some social media associated specifically to the gaming environments and how those groups will interact with one another. So let's talk smartphones and tablets. So it is our top platform for play, of course, the biggest category for it, because as we look at smartphones and tablets, we get to look at app stores and how they actually publish different games available for people to participate in. The biggest category is casual games. So that's really kind of community oriented games where you're going to talk to other players and you're interacting. It's not where you're on maybe a PC style where you're going to find first person shooters, and it's a different type of interaction. So these are more casual games. Our top gaming zone for younger kids, and these are our 2025 stats, is always been up in that Roblox community. And I think that's an important area because as far as under the age of, let's say, 15 and below, Roblox is definitely the top community for players. It's even pushed past where you're getting into the Minecraft groups because it is so mobile friendly, and that is a more accessible resource for them. So let's look at some of the Roblox artifacts. When we decide to find something like Roblox, which is unique, it's an online platform, it's obviously also got an app associated with the device, we have a couple different areas to look at those artifacts in. So I just am getting rid of some of the extra screen there. So we first start with the app itself. We want to look at what the app has to offer for us. We're going to look at some of the permissions that it grants by having the app available on the individual device, because most of the time people leave things at the default settings. So you can go to the App Store, you can kind of review what it's saying about the particular app and say, okay, they're going to leave it at the default, especially when you're expecting a younger kid to be playing this particular app. So as we look at those settings, we know where the access controls are, and we know smartphones are all incorporating through different sandboxes. We can immediately go to our forensic image associated with our mobile device and kind of break out what the databases are that build the apps. And that's an interesting forensic factoid for you, in the fact that when we start looking at different apps associated with devices, we're really looking at three primary file types. We're looking at JSON files, we're looking at plist files, and we're looking at SQLite files. Those are Beyond that, we're looking at individual text files. It's nice that we don't have a huge array of proprietary databases when it comes to app programming, and that we have functions within those files that we can look for every time. After we look into those files, the one consistent piece of evidence that you'll see is you can almost always see people's account information. So I can see what their account screen name is. I'll probably see where they're logging in if I don't see their password in plain text. Even some of the higher end encryption apps out there, that data is usually able to be seen in plain text. Once we go into there, we can keep exploring. If we don't start seeing things like conversations, which would be common in a Roblox style app, this is what's telling us that we're probably seeing the app push something up to the cloud. So, this is if I were going from the raw device to my image to trying to figure out what this app is doing, this is how I'm kind of putting those pieces together. And this is a very typical forensic process. Most of the tools out there that you'll find that are commercial tools don't spend the time to maybe parse every game out there. There's millions of them. It would be an impossibility. So having those individual skills to understand those three different file types and being able to break it down are kind of critical when we start looking into unique areas like gaming. We see similar results as well when we start looking at what our app stores are doing. And I like this particular site. I also go to the different app store sites because it's telling me where a particular app is ranking in the system. And you're probably wondering, okay, you already said Roblox is popular. I get it. But when I'm investigating someone's phone and I know that they're playing games online and I all of a sudden see angry squirrels, that's going to make me kind of have that moment of why do you have such an odd game on your device? There has to be an individual reason for that. It's not like it's ranked in the first, like even 30 pages associated with the app stores. That's usually a sign for me that they're going into there for a particular reason. And I'll start with the odd app on the device or the odd game on the device before I'll go for the more popular one to see why is that there? Why are we looking at angry squirrels? That doesn't make any sense to me versus, oh, you have Roblox. That makes sense to me. The age of whose device I'm looking at. I kind of try to find those unique things on there as well. You'll see there's a lot of typical behaviors when you start looking at enough phones out there that it's they'll stand out like kind of like the smoking gun or oh this has glitter all over it. I can totally start looking at this information. On average, most people have about 165 different apps on their phone, so you'll start seeing some typical patterns occur within these devices. So as I break down the device into the little areas, that's when I go to my tool and I'm looking for those individual raw files. And this is probably the most important thing, and you'll see a lot of different things as you start exploring the field of digital forensics. There's a lot of tools out there because you need tools to get the job done. But what you need more than anything is the ability to kind of break this information down into its individual pieces and be able to put those puzzle pieces back together again. This is where my neurodivergency associated with being dyslexic has been so handy because it's automatically doing everything backwards in my brain. So I like starting with the pieces and then building it back into what it originally was. That clicks for my brain, but everyone's a little bit different. It's important to understand those individual components, though, if you're going to start understanding the large array of different gaming devices out there. So this is how we kind of do it. I'm an analogy person. So when we start looking at all these different apps that are associated with the devices, we kind of look at them as parsed and unparsed, and that's how we reference them in the field in general. So if we have parsed data, typically a tool has done that for me, which is fantastic. It probably will make it get to the end results much faster. I still like to check it and make sure the tool hasn't messed anything up or maybe it was out of date with what happened with a particular app. But having something parsed is kind of the same as these chairs. They've taken a whole bunch of chairs and they've lined them up in individual rows that are designed for specific things. So one might be my chats that I'm having, one might be all my contacts and friends I have within an app. All of those kind of represented by each one of those different rows. And typically they'll have one file associated with them. So they might represent a SQLite file or a plist file. Now, the other side of it is when my brain gets really happy as far as doing something that's going to be a little bit more work, but this is putting those pieces together. I'll just get a whole pile of those chairs, and then I have to figure out how they're going to go into each of the individual roles and where they kind of belong within the app structure. And that's what we look at when we call it unparsed data. When we start investigating into gaming investigations, and I'm probably the only digital forensic person that actually thinks that this is really an impactful area for our space, but this is when you're going to spend that time at that unparsed side because there's just millions and millions of different games out there. Making a gaming app for our smartphone investigations is probably the most popular way to release a new app because it's the smallest path to entry into the field of online gaming. So there's tons of them out there. You're going to have that big old pile of chairs to kind of go through and look at in order to be able to find what your evidentiary nuggets might be. So here is your example. And for those of you that might be watching a recording of this, a lot of my screenshots are not going to be entirely clear. That is on purpose. That is so this could be recorded because this is real test data. And so I thought that was the easiest way to kind of show it, but not show it completely. This is a good example of just test data, though, that breaks out a particular game into the individual database pieces and then allows me to kind of put it together. So you'll see the different database pieces there in the tree view, and on the right, you're going to see, hey, look, these are the communications, nice shot, or this is a hard game, or hey, good luck. So I know I'm seeing all of the communication that happens within the gaming app itself. The data is typically there, you just have to dig in a little bit deeper to find it. So let's go to our second area. So this is computers and cloud. And yes, cloud does apply over into our mobile data, but I'm going to deal with it specifically within the computer environment. This is our second most popular gaming platform that people use. It's the most popular with the massive multiplayer online role-playing games. So this is where you're going to see a lot of those played. This one is currently having a very large impact with it as far as the gaming community is actually feeling a hit over the AI chip shortage that's currently occurring. So if you want to get more memory for your gaming PC right now, you're spending $1,000 on something that used to cost you like 300. So there is actually an impact of what we're seeing in technology hitting an entire community because they both want the same chipsets. There are a lot of new free PC games that has made this community grow a little faster than we've seen some of the others. And it's trying to get some of those first person shooter or other style of games out there in a community get picked up. And part of that is the desire for people to be able to create different personas and kind of get that rest and relaxation side by almost being someone else. And you're seeing that a little bit more popular in the computers and cloud environment. So this is where you kind of see the breakdown. I say that because it still is over the 50% range because only 43% of the people are using this mobile devices. So the rest are using something on a computer. And it makes sense. You're getting a larger viewpoint for a very graphically driven gaming system. Oh, sorry, wrong way. And this is where a lot of people are going. So this is where I'm focusing in as far as where your forensic nuggets are going to come from is we're going to look at Steam. And the reason we want to look at Steam is it's really kind of a platform in and of itself that allows you to house all of your different PC-based games. For those of you who might be gamers, I'm sure you already know that. But if you look at the growth ratio that Steam has been having, its number of subscribers has been on a constant tick up, which means we're going to see this in more and more digital investigations than we had ever before. If I was investigating someone's computer and I see that they have Steam set up on their computer, I know that they have an entirely different world of data that is existing within that online environment than what I'm going to see by just processing their Windows system or by processing their Mac system. All of that is going to take me doing extra work in the process to be able to kind of go into that particular world. So a quick shout out to my son. This is his Twitch channel. And I just have a shout out to him because he inspired all this research. Before we started researching into this at Parabon and providing tools and functionality for digital investigators to be able to capture this data, all of the gaming evidence was getting left behind. And that's kind of a sad reflection, but there's so much data out there that it was just getting a little bit ignored. And he did a great job in sharing what that community experienced as far as crimes in that community, as well as why they were spending the time and what type of data they were sharing. So, we are going to look at some of his information that he openly shared with me so I could share it in a presentation. So, here is his Steam. So as we go through and we look at his account information, he was also a Counter-Strike player, so he has an account associated with that. He has different followers associated with that particular game than he does with Valorant, which is his primary game that he plays. So if I go in and I want to investigate it, I really have to see it in context of what type of gaming world he's working with. So he's not going to have the same people in each game. He's going to have different conversations, which means I have different databases that I need to look at in order to understand what's happening. I see, of course, his game name or his handle that he's using associated with it, his data opportunities as far as the way that it's seen within Steam are also data opportunities for me as a forensic investigator. So if I'm investigating something associated with him, I'm going to look at some of the data stores that he's already done with his own account. So I might have the screenshots where he says, no, I was talking to this person. It was at this time. I've got a screenshot of it. I can see the screen names on there. Then I have to just match up, was that person on board or not? So I'm going to have a real case example for you with the console games in just a few moments. But I want to look at that information. This is giving me what I call an expectation of data. That's why I want to see it in context of the actual program itself. As I continue to look in the program and understanding what it has, I also see he has a whole bunch of friends in here. So that's kind of giving me an overview of who he might have chats associated with it. That's also another digital artifact. It's the same as if you had your contact list on your phone. I can see the same thing in your Steam account, and those artifacts are recoverable for me. If he's getting bullied or cyber bullied by someone that might be in his friends list, I'm going to be able to track that information through those different databases because it will also show me the recently played. Did they have them blocked? Were they a moderator? All of those different things will show up as I start looking at that data. And then the last one is our groups. Within our groups, that's going to tell me who is he communicating with, what type of communities is he part of. So part of what happened within this, because we actually had a whole crimes issue happen, is there was a lot of people who do skin trading in Steam, and they use this as a method to generate different capital to be able to fund different games. They'll transfer money via gift cards. They'll transfer money via Cash App or Venmo or whatever it may be, which starts getting those little bits of fraud kind of tingling in my brain and my spidey senses. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But what happened is I saw how he was doing transactions in there and everything was legit as far as how they were happening. But then I started seeing how quickly it got fraudulent with people buying and not paying and different things like that. So within an environment that had no idea it had a financial transactions occurring, they actually had an entire area of fraud happening simply off of skin trading. And it's not something that was ending up being investigated by a police authority in any way, but the financial levels of it were into the tens of thousands. And it's just simply happening within a different space than what you might be looking for. What happens as we move into more of the computer gaming is where we start seeing the esports side of it come out. This has become a lot more popular over the last 5 years, where esports has become a practical career environment. And so, with that, we see different data artifacts come from it. And again, they're very game specific. So, we have a Counter-Strike team, you have a Fortnite team, you can have a Valorant team, a League of Legends team. Each one of those, as they start getting into the esports world, it generates different capital gains. Each one of these that happens ends up creating a different area that potential fraud can happen, because if there is money changing hands, there's absolutely going to be crime happening. And I want you to look at some of just the numbers associated with it, to the fact that millions of dollars ends up going through the esports community as the purses as they win different tournaments. This is a good example because as we have different authorities that end up sponsoring different events, you see a lot of collegiate logos and a collegiate change happening where we're seeing esports as an actual collegiate sport accepted just as much as something like football would be. So we're seeing more and more push to that. As we see that, we're going to see more and more artifacts and more issues come out of our gaming environments as far as crimes occur. Within that, I'm going to bring up Fortnite. So Fortnite's a perfect example. I've got the results of our 2025 on here, which is the champions with it. I think they made 450,000 as the top purse with it. This one was an interesting game because it was the first one that allowed an entire community to come online no matter what your speed of your computer was. So it got rid of some of that price point entrant to entrance issue taken away that you literally can play it on just about any platform you wanted to, and you don't have to have a super fantastic machine to play and still be fairly competitive in playing it. I originally had not played Fortnite and I ended up deciding to join the Fortnite community, play it a couple times, and I thought it was very interesting because the way the game is set up, it is very community driven, so that was the nice part of it, but the other side of it is it was very easy to kind of improve your skill set over a short period of time of gameplay, which was nice because I started and I think I was at like 30 ranked in the game and then I jumped up into the top 10. And I mentioned the motion sickness, so you know it wasn't fantastic. The reason that this matters to us in digital forensics is because it has such a large community with it. So, from the billions of hours that have been spent inside of it to the ability to play it on any particular device, it kind of brings in the ability to also end up orchestrating different events with it. And I'm going to use an example of a different terrorist attack that was orchestrated out of a different game. It was not done out of Fortnite, but it was done in a similar style game. All of the different terrorist cell members would join the game within a large community, and then they would use the gaming platform to be able to communicate and coordinate when they were doing a particular attack. And the gaming environment was perfect for that because everyone was online. It was for a short period of time. And then they assumed, of course, then the data associated with their coordination and communication then would disappear as part of the game because it was very temp driven. That's where they were wrong, and all of those artifacts came together, and we were able to find where that cell was communicating in such a simple environment as a gaming community. Which brings us to our second area or our third area. This is where we're talking consoles. So, whether you were a group of terrorists looking to communicate and you all did it through console data, you still had that common gaming environment. With our consoles, one of the things that you want to watch for is the fact that console games can typically also be brought in through one of the other environments. Many things are very account driven now, so you could sign in and use that cloud aspect that I mentioned to be able to gain access into the different communities that you might be part of. So within our consoles, these are our top console series that we do investigations on. And they kind of have different problems associated with each one of them. I'm not normally in this location. I'm normally in my office and I have a wall of the different IoT devices, and gaming falls into that IoT investigation space. The biggest problem you have with most of these different types of consoles out there, and I'm going to go back to the Steam Deck. Where is it? Oh, sorry. I thought I had that slide in there. So this big problem that we have with each one of these is actually the proprietary side of it. And I say that because PlayStation is a perfect example for it. Everything that is associated with a PlayStation device is encrypted all the time because everything that's done on it that is a game, the whole design behind it is it's all proprietary data and they want you to be able to buy the next version, buy the next game. So you don't see a lot of hacks out there associated with that. As the gaming consoles have evolved, there's less and less opportunity to be able to modify those consoles to be able to function in a different environment. Originally, Xboxes were very modifiable. So we would take apart our Xbox, we'd change out the drives, increase our drive storage. We could turn it into a Linux server. Essentially, it was just another form of a PC. But now, because of the proprietary nature of it, they've added additional mechanisms in there to prohibit different things like that. So you get less and less mod activities. With the exception we've had in the last year, the introduction of a Steam Deck. So this individual handheld kind of bridges in between our console, our mobile, and our PC because it's designed to run Steam. So all my games that I have in my Steam account, I'm able to carry them with me in this small device. Technically, this is really just a small PC that is based on Linux that I could then carry it around for me. Easy, simple. I've not yet seen these in a forensic investigation because they were on back order for such a long period of time. But I do believe it is just a matter of time that we start seeing this as someone's primary console into how they're infiltrating different crimes. So, our consoles in general, most of the time, you're getting dual play, which means you can see the same game have access on a console as well as a PC. And this is why I've kind of done it in this order. So you're going to see central data stores. That's where our cloud capabilities really come in. That says, am I able to capture that information through credentials that they leave on these devices? And the answer is very often yes. Many of the cloud accounts associated with them will give us all of that data, such as like our friends list that we want to know who they're communicating to. So, out of our console games, this is the top games that we saw in 2025. Now, some of the interesting things that we have in this, and I'm going to give you my example of a case that we actually did at Paraben, is we had an individual who, based on cell tower triangulations, said that they were at a shooting. Their house was within the same geographic region as the cell block would have considered it. And they said, no, wait, I wasn't at this shooting. I am not the shooter. I was at my house and I was playing a game. And that was their alibi. And I thought that was an interesting moment. And we were actually contacted by the defense team in that one. And I said, okay, so they were at their house playing a game. I said, we need to look at the gaming console. Is that how they were playing? Were they playing on their phone? Were they playing in Steam? How were they playing? They were playing in a console. So as they were playing in a console, I said, okay, did they also have their phone? Yes, which I said that makes sense because we're talking about cell towers. Let's get all the different pieces of data together and see if we can get what this story is about their alibi put together. And they were playing a driving game. They were playing Grand Theft Auto. So while they were playing the game, an interesting thing had happened because as they played a video game, as most people who are motion sensitive, they decide to kind of move with the game. And of course, you're having to look at my camera and you see I'm moving around like this. And so I'm kind of tilting in my chair from one hip to the other hip. Their phone was in their back pocket. So, the interesting data artifact, in addition to having logs associated with the game itself, was that the accelerometer that was inside their smartphone matched that movement of them going back and forth while they were playing the game. And that data corroborated that their alibi of they were playing a game on their console when the shooting occurred matched up to the exact moments of they were not making any walks, they weren't doing any other movement. The only movement was the rocking back and forth. So you never know when your gaming's going to help you. And here's the slide I was looking for. The encryption and the proprietary nature of gaming consoles is actually what causes it to be the most difficult. You get very little pieces of data that you can actually pull apart from it because it is such a highly competitive business space. You can, however, still process some of it. So this is an example here of an Xbox that has been dismantled and then processed through for its file system information. And they're kind of a unique scenario in the fact that it's put out by Microsoft in the first place. So it's not a big surprise that it's really a file-based operating system within the environment. Many of them use different derivatives of Linux to be able to produce the gaming consoles. But as I look through Xbox data, I can find random fragments of communications that I might have been having with other people within my community within that Xbox system. it changes the longer the generations go out from the Xboxes. So an original Xbox has actually a ton of data artifacts that we can review on it. Where if we get to I think it's Series 5 is out now, I could get very, very little information associated with the device. And we're also switching over to solid state storage as opposed to spinning disks, which is what the original devices had. And again, other examples for you, you're able to see all the music that's associated with like the different games that have been loaded on it, so on and so forth. So these are just examples for you of what looks like in their different file systems. So our last area, as we've gone through our resident devices from mobiles to computers to consoles, is when we start looking at the social aspect of gaming, which is really a lot of the motivation to play. If you look at the others, the 65% of video game players play with others. You're not just playing the game by yourself for the satisfaction of beating the game. You're typically coordinating with others to be able to play the game with them. So that has built up a lot of different things. So it's built up a whole live streaming environment associated specifically to gaming, which is where you start seeing things like Twitch as a primary social media platform for gamers. Even though I can do other things on Twitch, Twitch is really just built off of interest. The primary interest on there is definitely associated with video gaming to some of the other platforms from YouTube Live to TikTok Live to Rumble Kick and um, the other one's really Russian based, so you're not going to care so much about that one. But each one of these also changes what I'm looking for in my data because if someone's doing a live stream and they say, hey, that's where I wasn't part of the shooting, is my example I gave you earlier, you now have all the artifacts you need to corroborate what that alibi might have been. So when I messed up, I missed Discord on here because Discord should also be on here. So our primary social platforms are anything from Twitter or X to Twitch to TikTok to Instagram to YouTube. And that middle one should be Discord because you definitely have a separate gaming community on Discord servers. Typically, they start much younger on Discord. So you're going to get a lot of that teen interaction on Discord that then evolves as they get older. They usually bring their channel associated with their gaming environments or gaming teams or members or community forward with them as they age. So let's look at some of these artifacts. So let's look at Instagram. So pretty much if you are in Gen Z, you've got to have an Instagram account. Otherwise, there's something probably wrong with you. So most Gen Zers have an Instagram account and they will share all of their feeds associated with their gaming if they are a streamer of any type to Instagram. It's also where they might slip into someone's DM and be able to have separate conversations. The important part for us in the forensic artifacts is, of course, all those conversations are recoverable for you. Instagram's wonderful because it exists on both the devices of which you decide to use it on, as well as in the cloud. So there's multiple ways to capture Instagram data that is a huge benefit to us in digital forensics. So we like Instagram for that aspect. So we see a difference between Instagram resident on a device to Instagram in the cloud. Obviously, cloud is going to give us a larger scope because it's a full access to everything associated with the individual account, to Instagram for a compliance archive. So this is a new source of digital evidence that we use often now in digital forensics is we use compliance data. Compliance data is something that you can request, and each one of you who's watching this session, whatever social media platform you have, it doesn't matter, they all have a compliance data request. Typically, you go into settings and security, and it's called, download my data. It has something in that kind of terminology. You can go through and request 100% of your data since the day you joined that social media platform to the day you request it. And they are required by law to collect all that information up and provide you a download link. It's probably the most fascinating data you're ever going to see about yourself because it records it down to when you follow someone or you like a picture in Instagram, and when you decided to go and take that like away because they might have beat you in that game you played with them last night. It's shocking to the level of detail that they actually record in the compliance data that we maybe don't see in the other sources of the data. So I do recommend this as a wonderful exercise to go and take a look at the data that you're generating in your social media platform. Facebook has similar information just because it's also meta related, where I'm going to be able to see the raw information for something like Facebook or Instagram. Again, meta all kind of behaves very similar to one another. And if I want to see something like the messenger data, because I could be communicating through there, I actually have to pull either the messenger app or I have to pull the compliance data archive associated with it. I'm not going to see the same data associated with the cloud. We do, if you want to kind of experiment and look at some of your social media data or try to do a cloud acquisition to just kind of experience what that's like as a digital forensic person, I have a free version of my tool, which is E3, that you can do that with. I just always recommend you use a VPN if you're deciding to do any type of cloud work because your IP address will get blocked very quickly by the different providers of social media. You can get the same compliance data here. So again, I'm in Facebook. I'm looking for some type of phrase like download your information or get a copy of my data. But I want you guys to kind of look at what that sub information is. That's anything from all the messages to the events to everything you're following. It's very similar. It's just in context to whatever social media platform you have. So let's look at YouTube. YouTube's an interesting one because it doesn't have necessarily its own history, although it's a very popular social media and search engine platform. This one is entirely cloud-based, so I'm not going to see anything on an app on your phone or something you've done in your internet history. I'm going to get fragments of it. But what I do get when I want to look at a full investigation into YouTube is I do a request for Google Takeout. Your YouTube history is typically located in your large Google store of information. And if you literally Google Takeout, you can request all the information that Google has about you. I recommend you do that because Google's done some recent changes to privacy rules, and the data that they're collecting has changed quite dramatically with their AI. So there's some things you might want to opt out of on the security side of it. But take a look at that Google Takeout. That's where I'm going to see that YouTube data with it. And remember, 73% of YouTube gamers like watching it on YouTube. So if they're not playing, they're watching someone else play. It's just like any other sport out there. You might like watching football replays. People like watching Counter-Strike replays. It doesn't matter. It's just a different community that you can find data on. This is an example of a Google Takeout with a YouTube history in it. So you can see the information here, which is here. It's all their history of what they actually typed, what they clicked on. All of that is available in your Google Takeout. And it's quite a long history of many months of what your queries have been and what you've watched. The other note on Google, well, and YouTube in general, is look for features in there such as ad personalization. That's going to tell me very much on how the cookies are behaving, what you're getting advertised to. All of that information is recoverable. The reason that matters in specifics to gaming is because as you click on the different things within the games, a lot of them have advertising with them depending on where you got the game from. So I'm going to see those links come through in your cookie history as well. Our last one I think I have is Twitch, mainly because this is very specific to video gaming. This one is entirely cloud-based, so even if you have the Twitch app on your device, I'm not going to get a lot of resident data from there. I've got to go to the cloud for it, which makes sense because a lot of people will do streaming with it. I live in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. It's called Grootly Logger. And within that environment, our local electrical co-op, they actually had, they put out a magazine to rural America. And I was surprised because they had an entire article just on esports and about video game streaming. And I was surprised that they were pushing Twitch onto such a unique community. And I realized that that outreach for gaming in general has really hit all the different levels that you possibly could have. So keeping that in mind. Twitch is obviously live streaming. I've mentioned that before. So you can do anything from watch someone cook on here to watching Olympics to watching people play games. This is all to watching tournaments as well. This is what Twitch is popular for. We can see information in Twitch. Again, my son has consented to letting us use his account. We can see similar things to what we see in Steam, as far as we can see people who are watching us, how many followers they have, and we see obviously a live chat that occurs while you're streaming out in the platform. The best news is for us in forensics, most of these artifacts are also recoverable for us. So we want to know that. That's going to give us such a large point in time to be able to put a timeline together of what was actually happening at this second, at this minute. Maybe it corroborates an alibi. Maybe it was a stalker that was actually harassing you while you were streaming. All of those information pieces come together to give us good evidence. The Twitch data that we capture with the tokens that get generated from your different devices include anything from your user information to the conversations that you've had, who you're following, to your saved videos, to your own streaming list, and all your different avatars out there. So it's a lot of good information that is all captured out of the cloud with your tokens. So here's an example of what it ends up looking like when we process it through for forensics. Your PC typically will leave your tokens behind, even if you have everything turned off. This is, hey, I don't want to store the cookies. I don't want to store any of this information. The game itself, or the app itself, we'll put it, the app will still leave these tokens behind as part of your registry tokens. And we are able to pull those out of those places to be able to log in and capture the information associated with your account. So we can image your cloud data that way. All of this, of course, is done in a legal premise. It's not just like randomly going out and doing this, of course. So remember, always have the legal premise to move forward and do this, but this is part of how we capture that information. And this is my son who consented that to that. And again, that's because he plays Valorant. We see a lot of his information in there on how he is a Valorant player, his descriptions. We can see his conversations, his saved videos he's had while he's been doing Twitch streaming, all of that information. And we will go through this one very quickly. Hopefully, don't watch the screen of the recording, as I am not liable for what it says, because that was his live feed. That's why I just quickly move past that one. The other thing that you have to keep in mind with all of these is it is a different community, and you will have different emojis, emoticons, and emotes that are associated specifically with particular platforms. So make sure you're looking at that data in context, because when we start looking at it in the raw forensic form, it doesn't come through in the same context of maybe what it was meant within the platform itself. So we always have to keep that in mind. So let's talk a minute about the future of what's happening. So normally I would start talking about virtual reality in here because I spent a bunch of time looking at our Oculus headsets, what the future of gaming was going to be looking like as we were starting to see VR become a little bit more mainstream. However, in December, um, Zuckerberg decided to kill off the metaverse. So it's gone. It's actually going to, even the metaverse in the workspace environment is being killed off in February. So we're seeing a lot of changes happen in that space, and we're going to see the end of those particular headsets, which makes me sad. I actually have a couple of them, and they were making really good technology pushes forward. At the same time, we did see in the Consumer Electronics Show in 2025 the push for smart glasses to come out, where we're seeing augmented reality start to get a little bit more mainstream. So I imagine we're going to see VR come back at some point, probably just not made by Meta. When we start looking within that environment and some of the other areas that we see within gaming, we have to understand different things that we're looking for. You'll see terminology like a mirror world, having a digital twin, having mixed reality. So I could have AR, I can have VR, so augmented reality, virtual reality. We'll see blockchain being used to be able to secure information and tokens, and then having NFTs as well. Again, in my rural Tennessee location, we had an NFT Mexican restaurant. And so they would sell NFTs, and their NFTs would grant you an access to like a taco every day. So you spent X amount of dollars, you got an NFT, you show your NFT of the taco, they gave you a physical taco. It was probably the best explanation, such a weird environment to implement it, of what an NFT is. Keep that in mind as those NFTs get changed out as currency. Hang on. As we saw other changes in virtual happen, I've attended probably at least 3 dozen different virtual events where it's actually a virtual auditorium that you would join in a virtual headset. I know other universities who are using virtual environments to be able to teach students for remote learning and still have them having a hands-on experience. So I expect this to be pushed forward by the gaming community as well. So within our meta work, and because I've also encouraged you all to take a look at your individual data with your compliance archive, if you happen to be a meta user, when you go and request your data set, you'll see your individual account associated with your meta environment, and you can request your data associated with the VR as well. I'm going to totally cough, so sorry, pardon me for a minute. Hopefully I get through it. The big areas we're going to see changes: virtual reality, changes in our mobility, more cloud environments. Everything is pretty much connected to the cloud at this point. New communities happening within gaming, and then the rise of esports, all very impactful for it. Apologize. Winter, very dry. So I'm totally going to put myself on mute so I can cough, and then you guys can start gathering up some questions.
Thank you, Amber. All right, so questions for Amber. You can send it through the chat, and the students that are here present, please let me know if you have any questions. Don't be shy. And everybody that's online, please go ahead and put your questions in the chat.
Everyone always hates asking questions in here, so I get it.
We'll give them a minute.
I did have someone ask a ton of questions online, like enough that I have to put it in a document and actually type up my answers for it, but I will do that. So if you're a little shy, you're welcome to connect on LinkedIn and then I can answer your questions that way. But this isn't definitely an emerging area. I saw some of you were pro gamers back in the day. So,
All right, we have one here in the chat.
okay.
So how does someone with no experience get into this?
Um, if you're interested in digital forensics as a professional field, the first thing to do is obviously get educated in it, pursue classes in college. I believe University of Arizona actually has a degree in this, perhaps. But the biggest thing is kind of get started with those. The other side of it, after you have a degree, if you have a degree that's related to it, then you can start looking at professional certifications. This particular industry requires you to have a variety of professional certifications as well as an educational background in order to get started. People then say, "Oh, I've got all that put together. Now what do? I still can't find a job in it." So this is where your introverted self has to be a little bit extroverted. You need to go out and start volunteering. And it is hard to get a job anywhere without any experience. And I think the biggest thing you can do is put yourself out there with the skill sets you've just learned. So I volunteer for a lot of nonprofits. You'd be shocked how often nonprofits have no one doing cyber or no one being able to help them if they do have someone leave and they need to do a forensic review of data. They just don't have anyone to do that. Volunteer and write them up as projects. That's what's giving your resume some meat and potatoes, so to speak, so that it's not just you're well educated, you've got the certifications, but you don't have that experience. Go out and offer the services you have. You might not get paid for it, but you're going to build the resume, and that's an investment into yourself. I think a lot of people, I mean, I volunteer and do cybersecurity for multiple dog rescues because I'm an animal lover, and they have zero cybersecurity being done for them. And I could probably do like 50 more of them, and they'd still have no cyber. So volunteer and write those up as projects and then keep maintaining them. Even writing policies is part of getting experience in a field. So it's a process. It's not fast, but it's absolutely possible. You don't have to have a background in it to find that this is an area you're passionate about. There is definitely more and more crimes happening every day, and this is how we investigate them, is all through digital forensics.
All righty, so
Thank you.
any questions here in person? Not yet. Oh,
Not
good.
yet. They're thinking
Go
about it.
ahead.
I can't
Can
even
you?
see you on camera. No intimidation.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see if Amber can hear you.
Are there any common things that you see either through gaming or social media that has more risk than people would expect?
I think the biggest thing that you have as far as at risk to you as an individual within social media of gaming is I was surprised how aggressive, I'm going to phrase it as aggressive, the individuals on there. And I think it's because it's a large community of handles. There's a lot of anonymity with it. And so I was shocked as I started investigating and doing more work with my son and his friends, like how often the people who block them were very aggressive and get to the point that it was, I think, a step beyond cyberbullying, that they could actually be guilty of excessive crimes, or there could be slander or libel. All of those things start coming into play. And I was surprised that that existed with the level of tolerance. And I think it's just nobody had any recourse in there. And I still don't see a lot of that. I've actually reached out to some of the gaming companies to say, you guys need to build a mechanism to be able to have this reported, and then it can be brought to additional charges as needed because it's a risk. And I think that's probably the biggest surprise I've had in there. I think that answers your question. Maybe.
Right, so we'll go back to the chat.
Okay.
So in law enforcement, we're used to pulling from full social media profiles, sometimes hundreds of pages. Are we going to see a simply printed version of gaming servers? I mostly ask because I've never been super technologically proficient and courts like the hard paper stuff.
I know it's so scary that courts like the paper so much. You're going to see similar polls to what you would see from a social media profile in the gaming one. So it's going to be contextually at similar sizes. You're never going to be able to do a full server poll. So you're not going to be able to like query up to Riot Games and say, I want everyone who was logged into the server at 11:59 p.m. and all the data that was happening. It's actually just too large of a data set for them to be able to pull it or be able to record it. It comes down to that individual user. So if I were law enforcement investigating, it definitely starts with that individual handle of the person that's involved in the investigation. They're not going to have the ability to answer to a traditional subpoena or anything like that. You're going to have to get it all from the individual side, which is a switch because you could subpoena up LinkedIn and try to get my LinkedIn information, and they would legally have to provide it to you. But the way that the gaming servers are cycling through data so quickly, it's not resident with them long enough that they could actually do a proper poll for law enforcement. That's why you have to go back to the resident player itself and their data. So hopefully that makes sense.
Here in person,
Oh,
any question? Bryn, did you raise your hand? Okay. So back to the chat.
yep.
Oh my. How difficult is the technical aspect of digital forensics, coding, etc.?
So the coding aspect of digital forensics, you're primarily working in scripts that you would be writing in Python. So I don't believe that is so unattainable. And I know I cannot get through a presentation anymore without bringing up AI, but I will tell all of you who are students out there, you better learn how to do good prompt engineering because that is going to be the future. I was just talking to you about massive amounts of data that can be collected. That's what AI is for. It's the perfect assistant to someone that's in a high tech field like digital forensics to use to be able to help understand that data. And I never would have thought that I would hit a sci fi moment like this in my lifetime, but AI is making that happen. So keep that in mind. Good prompt engineering is the key. It's not just a simple sentence. Most of the prompts, like I will use, when I'm working with AI, are at least a paragraph in length because I really want it to do the results I'm looking for. It's not going to be a casual question. So keep that in mind. The technical aspects beyond that for digital forensics, I will use myself as an example. I am neurodivergent, which it didn't have a name, by the way, back when I originally found out I had dyslexia. I just read everything backwards. And when I write up on, like if you had me write on a whiteboard, I write the first letter, I write the last letter, in the middle of the words are a big mess to everyone else, but to me, they totally made sense. And I had no idea that there was any difference in how my brain was thinking. But I did not grow up in a family that had a computer. Our first computer and the last computer at my parents' house was an Apple IIc. So it was not a great computer. It's very old. I lost one of the WordPerfect discs because WordPerfect was in existence. I didn't have a whole lot of accessibility, and I had nothing near where people have today, where you have a computer in your pocket. And I learned it. And I learned it by reading and practicing. They didn't have classes in colleges. I think anyone can learn how to do this field. You just have to be willing to put the time in. It's not a quick learn, it's a long learn, but anyone can do it. I was a kid who didn't have any experience in that. My parents were an anthropologist and a stay-at-home mother. That had nothing to do with anything digital in life. It just took me taking the time to learn it. And I've learned everything I know about computers, which is, I feel a lot at this point. And I've learned it on my own. So I know it's possible. I don't think it's too difficult. I don't think anything is too difficult anymore. So I know that was my campy moment that anyone can do this, but you really can do
Yes,
this.
and we agree with you.
So
Can we do a couple more, Amber? A
yeah,
couple more
yeah, go
questions?
ahead.
Okay, so you provided many examples of informational artifacts that can be extracted from game data. What would be the actual forensic or evidentiary value of a lot of this information? Is this to build profiles or to identify illicit activities occurring within game space?
It's all of the above. So we'll start with our first aspect we do when we're doing any type of investigation, or my preference, and everyone's a little different. Because you're looking at a digital investigation, you're typically looking at a scope of time. One of the things you're doing is you're building a timeline, and you're building a timeline of the activities of the time we spent here to what I was doing right before this to what I'm going to be doing after it, and all the things that were running in that moment of time. Building a comprehensive digital timeline on someone and everything of their fingerprint, if they're spending the amount of time that I use my examples of my sons who are all in their 20s, um, they're spending 10 to 14 hours a day in some type of gaming environment, logged in one of their types of devices. That's a big part of their timeline. If I want to know what's happening, what type of vectors are open to them, that becomes part of it. Everyone approaches a digital investigation differently based on the type of investigation they're doing, but timeline's a pretty consistent pattern. You'll see whether someone's being exploited, there's been a data breach, any other type of incident response. So there's been malware, whatever it may be, to bullying to stalking. Most of them involve a timeline. And I think digital gaming is a good contributor to that overall timeline. And that's where those artifacts really become impactful. The gentleman I used as the example earlier with the phone and his accelerometer showing what he was actually doing, that he was not performing his shooting or anything like that, that kept him out of jail. If his attorney would have just gone with what the prosecutor had said, that said, oh, his phone was in that cell tower, because cells work in cells, and he was close enough. He was a couple blocks off. It makes sense. You had a gang affiliation. You had all this history. We think it's you. We're going to put it through and try to find this information and see if that jury finds you guilty. He had to roll the dice on that. We had a definitive digital proof, a one or a zero, that said he was not there. He was playing this game, and his phone showed he did not leave that couch. That's the difference. That's where the evidence really lies. It doesn't matter if you're defense or prosecution. It's a one or a zero. It's why I love digital forensics over any other type of forensics. All the rest of it is arbitrary. This is the only one that is a definitive, it's there or it's not. So, timeline. That was the short answer. Okay.
All right, so what are some of the most persistent issues that continue to make digital forensics difficult despite new developments?
It is focused on technology that changes every day. And now it is changing exponentially faster than it's ever changed before. So, an example, cell phones took I think the stat is it took 14 months for full market distribution, where it was just commonplace to have a smartphone, a cell phone of any type, right? And in that time period, technology had to grow on that curve. We have now seen in the last year, AI grew in less than 6 months to the same level cell phones took over a year or two. So it is an exciting time, but that technology shift and the ability to see data be so large. Originally, when I started, I had a 300 megabit computer drive. That was huge. That was expensive and huge. I just bought 32 terabytes for $230 and I filled it as well. Those things are the factors that make it so difficult. Imagine how long it takes to examine 32 terabytes of data. It's a crap ton of time. That's like a technical term. That's a long time if you think about your computer and having to review every aspect of that 32 terabytes. That's a lot of data. So those are the problems you have. Technology is growing really fast and data is cheap.
All right, can we do one last,
Yeah,
Amber?
you're good. Yeah. No,
Okay.
remember, I didn't know exactly how long it would be. And so I allocated time. We're good.
Alrighty, so with some platforms asking you to verify your age through your ID, such as Roblox, do you
Hmm.
feel as though this violates privacy? And is this good for digital forensics?
So, if any of you are parents and you have kids who are playing Roblox, I think that it is a huge deal to make sure whatever gaming platform you're using, you actually have the account created in context of your actual age. And I say that because I don't believe it is a privacy concern. This is their ability to follow the law in their back end programming to make sure that they're protecting the minor. There were case law that came out because Roblox was a huge community for child exploitation because there weren't a lot of those guarantees in, and it went viral. It got really popular really fast. And so a lot of predators logged in, created accounts, and they had a lot of unmonitored minors in there. And so they've started to build in those extra safety protocols because the law says, hey, you have to do this in your technology if it's going to be marketed to minors. So I think that's a real positive. It's not necessarily a privacy concern. I am a privacy advocate, but when it comes to a minor, their obligation to protect their privacy is very, very important. When it comes to my choices as an adult, that's when I get to make the choices about my privacy. So I have very different views on a minor. I don't think that that is a violation of their privacy. That's actually them fulfilling the law and how they now have to implement it. It's also why you saw a shift in IoT toys. New laws came out that required technology design for a minor to have new protections in it because they were exploited so poorly and so quickly.
Alrighty, so any questions here in person for Amber?
I know that was a really negative thing to end on, guys. That was kind of sad. You should
They're
have
all
a better one.
shy here,
I
like,
know.
don't
I'm just
look
like,
at me.
ooh.
I don't have any questions. But
Yeah, I'm
Amber,
like,
thank
ooh,
you so much again. We learned
you're
a
welcome.
lot today. I
There
mean,
was a lot of stuff.
oh my
I know
goodness,
it's a lot.
a lot of great content. Thank you so much. I think Jason would like to say a few words.
Yeah, and Amber,
Yay.
this is Jason again.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back. You were always amazing. We appreciate it so much. I do want to tell you
Mhm.
that, we have a lot of intelligence students and
Oh,
information
very
operations
cool.
students, not just our cyber students here as well. And
Awesome.
we've been changing our intelligence collection courses for all of our students and so forth. We've brought cyber threat intelligence in, but there's no clear place for the intelligence students to look at how they dip into forensics, right? It's not really Masent, it's not really OSINT, and so forth.
It's not. I
But it's a
actually, so I think it is a change. So we are now all practicing digital investigations. I don't typically call digital forensics just digital forensics. I do digital investigations because I do OSINT with every investigation I do digital forensics on. I think we've all become one big old, like weird Play-Doh mess of whatever that color is. But yeah, it's for you OSINTers, that compliance data when you work with consent or your intelligence gathering It's huge. Or following people within a gaming environment to learn how it works. Huge intelligence. Huge.
Right. And your example that you gave of the kid playing the game and was swaying back and forth brought the cell site SIGINT together with
Mm-hmm.
forensics and so forth. So just for all of our students, keep in mind if you're a cyber student, this is really clear why you're here, right? But from an Intel perspective, somebody like Amber is an amazing source of data. And from a counterintelligence perspective, if you think back about 2 years now, there were players that were trying to show off to their buddies and they were dropping, Air Force people dropping classified documents in their
Yep.
chat. So,
And that was the Paris attacks were actually orchestrated. They were orchestrated on PlayStations. And
right.
that's how they picked all their attack vectors was on PlayStations.
So, I mean, Amber, you are again always amazing and it's so relevant to all of our students. I can't thank you enough for
Wonderful.
being here.
I hope it is. Otherwise, it just sounds like some crazy lady for an hour.
Oh
No, we
no.
like the crazy lady. So, no, but thank you so much. And again, Carla and everybody there, thank you for putting that all together. But Amber, if there's anything we can ever do for you, please reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if anyone needs anything, please reach out. I'm actually very much about an advocate for students and people trying to get in this space. I really do think anyone can participate in all of these fields. You just have to take the time to learn it.